Hello, tackle tacticians. We are covering an issue that gets a lot of painters, first timers, or just trying to get into the airbrushing or even painting cars for that matter. It's moisture. Moisture is probably one of the worst enemies when it comes to painting. Um, One, nowadays we're using a lot of the water-based acrylics. Of course, in the past, and there's still a lot of people that still use a lot of lacquers and enamels. Well, water does not mix with those, and of course, you don't want to water mixing with your acrylic enamels that are water-based because it can cause problems, issues, and also too, you want to filter out any kind of impurities because you don't want to go in that special project of yours that you've been working your um, uh, tail off trying to have it come out, as a perfected specimen, I should say. Um, and the biggest thing is the biggest question I get is um, moisture. You don't want to get the moisture inside that paint, or it'll cause problems down the line. So you got to be careful. So what we do, and what they several have asked me, is what kind of filtration do I use? We all have, in the with an air compressor, because it generates so much heat. As the electric motor is turning the pump is compressing the air, and of course, when that comes in, of course, it pulls in the moisture out of the air and it condenses it and it sets in the bottom of your air compressor tank, and then that actually gets thrown up into your lines as the pressure of the air is escaping the tank and fills up into your airbrush, into your lines. And then what happens is you get all that moisture in the lines. It's hard to get out. And also, you might have leakage of oil from that compressor. If you're using a standard compressor pump, they've got the oilless out now also too, but they do have some oil in them. They can escape those piston rings and cause the oils to get into your line of your airbrush and ruin your project. Well, they've got a few different types. This one here is made by Iwata, and what that does is that screws on to the bottom of your airbrush itself. Okay, now it filters down to 5 microns, which is actually really small in detail, and it has a little dump valve here that you can depress, and to drain the fluid out, and then you can actually just take it apart and clean out the element the best you can and put it back together. But that's not the only thing you need. The best way to do it is to get a conventional style dryer by itself or with a regulator, a moisture trap per se. And when you come over, we've come out of the compressor. We've got our strap. I'll get it here in a minute. We'll get our moisture trap out, and of course we have a built-in regulator on this one here. Plus we put a dump valve on this one here to where we can shut off, to we can change out anything around here without having to turn off the compressor and losing any kind of air. Yeah, and that's a little switch there. I had to wire it from a little small compressor, but also have a regulator that I use actually here for my airbrush control, so I can just reach over there, boom, and adjust it. Now, some of the airbrushes out there have a valve on the bottom that you can adjust the air pressure by the gun instead of having to reach over, which actually is kind of handy. But also, too, if you hear this, I got a desiccant filter here in line. I believe I picked this up at Harbor Freight. It was really inexpensive, probably about $6 or $7. But what that does, they have the desiccant beads in there, and once they turn a solid color, they absorb so much of the moisture, just like in a little package that you get out of your prescription bottles or bags of beef jerky. But it absorbs all of that moisture before it gets into your air brush or your air lines. You can actually find, Campbell Haas makes them, is replacement beads. So once those, and you can see, those have been in there for a while. They've been in there for about 2 years. And that was run, I originally had a different compressor, changed out not too long ago. But you can see they're starting to turn, a darker shade. So they're almost ready to be thrown out. But these I picked up at a closeout store. I don't know what it was, for $7.99. That'll last for a long time. That's lasted for over 2 years, almost 2.5. Well, actually, we're coming up 3 in November. So that's lasted for quite some time. So that's all I wanted to cover. I had a few questions about my what we do to keep our airbrush dry to keep the paint from getting contaminants in it. So hopefully this little tidbit helps out. Now I do not have this Iwata filter on my airbrushes. Me myself, that's a little bit kind of bulky for me. It's just one more thing to get in my way, because the one thing having the hair hose, getting in your way, or you're having to hold on to it and handle the dangle. But then something a little bit larger underneath there, and I find it cumbersome. Some people don't. Now you can actually take this and you can put it in line with your airline, and then you have it further down the line. Remember, the further away from the compressor, the better off you are as far as any kind of moisture trap, because if you've got your main moisture trap right at the opening or the outlet of the compressor, well, that hot air doesn't have time to cool down that soon in order to trap that moisture, actually to convert the moisture and to trap it. So it's always a good thing to have at least a foot, 2 feet, maybe even more of line coming out of your compressor to your first moisture trap. That way that air cools down, it condenses into moisture, and it falls into that main first trap. But make sure you put at least a desiccant or one of these filters in line after your main moisture trap. It'll save you in the long run. Hey, once again, thank you. Like, share, subscribe if you kind of find something interesting in here. Send us some comments. Check us out on Facebook at Tackle Tactician, at Lure Builder. Be sure to hit my good friends up at Badger Airbrush Company, Spray Gunner. They have all the supplies you need for all your airbrushing. I'm not too sure about the desiccant. Check them out though. Never hurts to ask. And once again, thank you, and remember to take a kid fishing.